Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back. We are here to transform your life. This is Transformational Thursday with Tamara Grob. She is our guest today. Once again, life coach, empowerment life coach. She's also somebody who I'm not going out on a limb. I firmly mean and believe this when I say nobody knows energy and energy healing like this woman. Seriously, she runs deep in a great way to help move your life forward. And she's got a fantastic book we're going to take a look at today. Welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you, Steve. I'm doing really well today. How are you?
Fantastic. And really gratified that we can dig into your book. You've talked about it a few times when we've gotten together. We've never really gone deep into the book. What's the book called?
Okay, it's called The Musings of a Soul Set Free, because that's what it is. They're my musings. It's not a fiction book where you just read chapter to chapter. It is written in 3 different parts for a reason, but it really is just my thoughts, kind of written. Some of it is written poetically, some of it is more just prose, but my thoughts on my journey. It's really about my journey.
When we say a soul set free, the soul we're referring to is yours, correct?
Yes, it is mine. But the intention is that my readers will eventually be able to get to that point as well. And it doesn't mean that because your soul is free, your life is perfect. That's not at all what is meant by that. It just means that I'm living now in a different vibration. That's what I mean by setting your soul free.
For sure. And I totally understand it. I'm in the same kind of journey, and we're all on different journeys. And the reason I ask you that question is because I believe we learn when we hear others' stories. You take a little piece of, I don't care what story it is, there's always going to be something there that we can take from it, put within to enrich, enhance our lives. Sometimes it's a big piece, an aha moment, like, oh, wow, she went through that. I didn't realize that. I'm going through that as well. Can we, before we get deeper into the book, the process, all of that, when you talk about your soul set free, can we go into a little detail on that, how you would describe your soul was set free?
So it's, as I said, it was a journey. I mean, it took several years to get there. And I had to go through several stages. I would say I went through what's called an awakening. And I know that a lot of people are going through this process right now. An awakening is when you start questioning everything about your life and things start to fall apart and you don't understand why. You don't understand what's going on in the world. You start questioning, why am I here? What is my purpose? Why is all of this happening? So this questioning is the beginning stages of an awakening. And so I was going through this quite a few years ago. I would say it started for me, almost a decade ago, but really got strong about 5-6 years ago. And I've always loved to write. I mean, I've kept journals since I was young and I still have them. So writing for me is just part of my process of processing my emotions, helping me to heal. It's a very cathartic process for me. And I know it is for a lot of people. And I encourage a lot of my clients to write and journal when they're going through things in their life. So my initial intention wasn't that I was going to publish this book. It was really just a process for me as I was growing. And we know when we grow, we go through growing pains. So that was this part of my life where I was really dealing with a lot of pain, a lot of grief. Relationships were falling apart in my life. My marriage fell apart because, as you said, we're all on different journeys and we're all at different stages. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. We're more advanced than the other. That's not what I mean. It's just different. And so some people can't come on your journey with you, even though they've been with you for a long time. And I had to come to terms with that. And that was hard. So the growing part is what you have to start going through. And that is very painful. But that's when I started digging deep into my own shadow work. And I did a podcast very early on what shadow work is. And that's basically looking at the parts of you that you have suppressed because you don't like them or others, society has told you these are not good. And it's not true. We are beings of duality. We have shadow in us and we have light. You cannot know your light if you do not acknowledge and know your shadow. So I had to dig deep into why? Why do I do these things? Why am I triggered by this? Why is this happening in my life? I had to go there. And then as I started to acknowledge this, I moved into a healing stage. And there again, this is where, because you have addressed your shadow, you are addressing your inner child wounds, you're addressing your trauma, you start to transmute all that pain and grief into light, into love, into compassion. And you know that like you can do this. It is possible to do, but it takes time. So the healing part is where I began to see and I began to remember my power to change my life, because no one's going to do it for you. But everyone has what they need within them, but you've got to go deep to remember and to bring that out of you. And then finally, that's the freeing stage, where what I mean by that is I'm still living in this world. I still have to deal and address the challenges of this world. I still have to earn an income. I still have to deal with a lot of nonsense, that everyone has to deal with. But I am able to move through things now with so much more ease and grace, and in a state of gratitude. And gratitude is so key, because there's the saying that the more you are grateful for, the more you receive to be grateful for. And that's an absolute truth. So when you look at life as, okay, I went through these challenges, I went through this pain and this grief, but I learned from it. You take the lesson, you learn that lesson, you move on from there in gratitude, because everything we go through is there to teach us something. Rather than looking at the negative of what, oh, I didn't have this or this happened, you flip it around. That's what frees you, because you are no longer attached to the story of what has happened to you. You get to create your own story. And that's what this is. This is my story.
Wow.
And I like, as I said, I wasn't intending to publish because it's quite personal. But I got very strong guidance, and I mean higher guidance, that came through that said, no, you're meant to share this because this is going to resonate with a lot of people, and it's going to help people. It may not resonate with everybody, and that's fine, but it is going to help a lot of people. And what I was doing is on my social media pages, I would post some of my musings, just with a picture, and because there are some images in the book as well that are they're mine. And I got such a response. And I knew, okay, okay, universe, I hear you. I will publish it.
Wow. Are these musings as they were when you wrote them during your healing or transformation, or did you change them up for book purposes? That makes sense?
Yeah, I totally understand what you mean. I would say I did have to change some up, because here's the thing. A lot of what I wrote was channeled through me. If you understand what I mean. Like I didn't just sit there and, rack my brain. You have to understand, I was really operating from my heart, from my intuition. I wasn't so much up in my brain when I did this. There were actually times when I would be woken up in the middle of the night and I would get a message, or what people call a download. And I had to get up at like 3 a.m, open my computer and write, because it was just, this has to come through right now, or I'm going to lose it. And so sometimes when this would happen, it would happen at a certain time. It wasn't necessarily meant to be for that period in my life, but I knew that it would be needed for something, if that makes sense. So a lot of it was written during the time, when I was going through the growing stage, when I was going through the healing stage. But there were also things that came to me with the benefit of hindsight, right? So when I was already in the stage of, let's say, my soul is feeling free, there were things that would come to me that I was like, okay, this was part of my healing as well.
Wow.
So yeah, I did have to change some things around.
I'm seeing something here that's very beneficial for many of us, in that I agree we should journal. Sometimes we have challenges with that. What do I write? How do I write it?
Mhm.
Is it something as simple? Nobody's going to see it, but I had a talk to my ex today and it wasn't comfortable. Whatever, hypothetical. But instead of challenging yourself that way, turn it into more of a muse. Maybe if you like poetry, maybe create it in a way that it rhymes just for you, but a different way to have it flow out of you. Because
Mhm.
sometimes we don't know how to do that. I struggle with it. It took me a while to start a gratitude journal because I overthought it a little bit. Now I wake up, didn't do it today. I feel guilty. Got to get it done before I go to sleep tonight.
No guilt or shame. No guilt or
I
shame.
know, but you know what? I make commitments to myself, and I have to stick to them. But it's as simple as the date I am grateful for, and I list three things, and the first three things I think of, and they could be able to walk my dog. I have a crappy Jeep I use for kayaking. It started today. Wow, little things, but that's my gratitude. But in journaling, and I believe it's so important that we do that. It's just a different way to do it. That's what I'm suggesting here. And you did it in terms of musings.
Right, right. And again, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
That's exactly my point. Most of what I didn't overthink what I wrote. It just flowed
Flowed.
because everyone has a story to tell.
Yeah.
Everyone has a story to tell. And here's the other thing is don't sit there and start editing everything that you know. Just let it flow. I mean, seriously, this is like something that writers that are well published will tell you. You have to just let it flow. The editing will come later. Of course, that will have to be done if you're going to publish, but you don't focus on that then because that will block you, that will stop you. So it's getting into practice. If you're not used to journaling, if it's something that you don't do, yeah, this could require some practice, some time to do. But I love the example, a gratitude journal. Just start with basic things like that. And you know what? It's the simplest things in life that bring us
Mm.
joy. It really is.
That was my aha moment. That was my aha moment because took my life from here and scaled it back down to here and
Mhm.
purged a lot of stuff. And I went for a walk yesterday and it was to an important event, but I was close enough to it. And I said, I'm not driving. I'm not deal with parking. I'm going for a walk. I'll tell you, it's not a long walk, but when there was no cars coming back and forth, I was singing at the top of my lungs, had my headphones on, my backpack. It was great. Yeah, that littlest thing, cup of coffee. I'm
Yeah.
great. I'm grateful. It's like fantastic. But
Yeah.
once you start, like you said, practicing the gratitude, and you shouldn't do it, I believe, so that more comes into your life. You should just be grateful anyway for the big things, for the little things, whatever they may be. You you chose to do a quote from somebody at the start of the book. Who is that somebody and why did you make that choice?
Okay, so I chose a quote by Madeline Beck, and she's an author, and it's something that I saw many years ago, but it resonated with me so strongly. So it's brief. I'm just going to read it and then I'll explain why I chose it.
Sure.
She writes, "Start over, my darling. Be brave enough to find the life you want and courageous enough to chase it. Then start over and love yourself the way you were always meant to." And for me, that just hit me so hard. There are two things that I take from that. One is no matter how old you are, no matter what you've been through in life, no matter your challenges, you can always change your life. You can always do something different because every day is a new opportunity to change your life. The other thing that I got from this is self-love.
Mm,
Self-love is the key. You have to love yourself enough that you are not afraid to take that leap of faith. You're not afraid to step out of your comfort zone. You're not afraid to be yourself authentically. You're not afraid to create the highest and best life for yourself. So you don't love yourself, you're not capable really and truly of loving another or of receiving that level of love. So everything comes from within, as I always say, and I always teach and live by that. So that's why I chose that, because I really, that's a message that I find is so important for people to understand. You've got to start by loving yourself first.
I can't emphasize more your point right there. And that's what I learned. And it took me time to learn it. And once you're at that point, it's my belief you never have to worry because somebody's always got your back. You.
You.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Others will disappoint. It is part of life, but you never have to worry. And I one day after going through a bunch of stuff, we all go through stuff. I walked out of this building, looked up toward the sun, had a lot going on, and I call it my quiet calm. I was like, oh, we're good. We
Yeah.
are good. We're good. Yeah. It's I love that quote because it says everything that you're talking about here, we're talking about. There's two words that really resonate with me from that quote that I really love.
Hmm.
She says, start over, my darling.
Hmm.
And if you took those two words out, the quote is impactful. But when you add those two words in, vibrationally, energetically,
Yeah.
she's showing you that she cares
Hmm.
in sharing this quote. Uh, and it connects with me more. I can't explain it either way. There's just something about her throwing those two words in, along with all the other powerful words in there, that
Right.
just make it genuine.
Absolutely. Our
Yeah.
words hold a lot of power.
Yes.
And when you can
Yeah.
expend that compassion in your words, that is when it really resonates with others. And people will connect with you because of that. And that's in a lot of my writing. Um, I use words like that because
Mm,
that's how it's also about yourself. You're calling yourself my darling,
right.
right? Because remember, we often speak so much more with kindness to others than we do with ourselves.
Oh my gosh.
We're our harshest critics.
You would never look in the mirror or look at somebody else that you love and say the things that we say to ourselves.
Exactly.
You would walk up to somebody that you love and, oh, look at your face. Look at that little zit right there. Oh, you gained weight. Well, why are you wearing that today? It doesn't look that good on you. Take that off. You'd never do that, but you'll do it to yourself
Right.
because you
Mhm.
don't love yourself. Most of us don't. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to see things, pick things out, but I believe it's going to come from a different area once you master the loving yourself
Exactly.
part.
Exactly. Like if you love yourself, you'll want to improve yourself out of love for yourself, not out of you're disgusted with yourself or you
Right.
don't like something. It's a very different energy that you're coming from. So you're going to do it in that higher vibration, and it's going to happen a lot faster
Do you
because
feel
you're
that
loving yourself.
people, and we're going to go back to the book in a sec, but at this point right here, do you feel that people don't engage in loving themselves or learning how to because they feel guilty that they're making it all about themselves? Many of us have been conditioned not to do that.
Yes, this is a
Hmm.
very, very big problem in our society. Um,
Agreed.
whether it's through religion, education, our upbringing, we're told that if we love ourselves, we're being selfish.
Yeah.
How
Yep.
dare you put yourself first, especially for women. You are here
Yeah.
to sacrifice yourself for others, for your family, for your children. How dare you put yourself first?
Yep.
It's actually the opposite. We are taught and programmed the opposite because how can you care for others if you are drained? If you are not caring for yourself? It's not selfish, it's self-care. There's a
Yeah.
big difference. There's a big difference. And I really try to help my clients with this because, the saying, you cannot pour from an empty cup. There's nothing in the cup to pour from. Well, that's you,
Mm.
right? You must fill yourself up first with your love, your compassion, so that it can overflow into others.
It's the E word, I believe, gets in there too, the ego. And that word has been thrown around where we look at it, look at the ego on that one. No, ego is huge. And we equate that with loving ourselves.
That's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
like selfish, right?
Yeah,
When the ego
exactly.
comes in and takes control, that's the selfishness. When you're coming from your compassion and your heart, that is self-love. So you take care of yourself so that you can care for others fully. So it's yes, it's learning. It's learning how to shift out of the ego into the heart when you're doing this. And this is why a lot of people feel guilty about it. But there's nothing to feel guilty about.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
isn't.
It's hard to learn this. That's why somebody needs somebody like you. I've talked to a lot of people, and that helped, but I didn't focus on it because I didn't realize that somebody that does your kind of work can help us move things along much quicker. How is the book associated with or even connected to the work that you do?
Well, basically, it's all about empowering people, right? Because that's what I did for myself. So in the book, you're going to see how I went through my shadow. I dealt with my shadow work, how I went through my healing, how I had to really go deep, and how I helped heal some of my trauma, how I helped love my inner child. I go through all of that. And then how I transitioned into this empowered state, right? Of feeling gratitude, of knowing my worth, of knowing who I am, of loving myself. So it's kind of like a blueprint, right? It's my work in written form, basically. So yeah,
Wow.
I hope that, my readers and anyone who reads this book will pick up on this and see that these are kind of steps you can go through to get yourself to that point of empowerment and freedom.
Is there a key point you want somebody to take away? We identified, I think one of those is loving yourself, but some other key points?
I really feel that another message that I try to put through in my book is to trust. Remember, we had a podcast that talked about trust and surrender. That is part of the process as well, because I did a heck of a lot of work on myself, and that's why I'm able to help my clients. But there comes a point where you have to trust and surrender to the divine universe, source, God, whatever you want to call it. There is a divine plan in motion. There is divine timing. Sometimes what we want is not what we need, and it may not come when we want it. It may not come in the form that we want it to come in, because our human is limited. We cannot see the higher perspective. We can't really see what's happening, right? We only see what's in front of us or to the side. You understand what I mean. It's limited, our viewpoint as a human with our
Yep.
brain, but our higher self, our soul, which is
Yep.
connected to source, God, universe, sees the bigger picture. So sometimes there has to be a point of patience, trust, knowing that if you are aligned with your heart, with your soul, you're doing this from your highest joy. This is what your heart desires. It's not what you think you should do. The universe is going to put things in motion for you very quickly, as it did for me.
Interesting. I've even just what you said, I had a vision for my life. And I really mean that. And that you woke up my mind a little bit there from what you just said. And especially, it's like we're the horse, the stereotypical with the blinders on, and this is the human experience, but it's all out here, but we can't see it. Wow. How do we find this book, Tamara?
So you can order it through the publisher's website, which is Balboa Press. So it's balboapress.com/en/bookstore, or Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. And on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, you can get both the paperback and the ebook.
Love it. Great publisher, by the way.
Yeah, they are the self-publishing arm of Hay House.
Yeah. Yep. And Hay House respected for decades for this type of work and information
Exactly.
from. Wonderful talking with you. Congratulations on the book, The Musings of a Soul Set Free. Set your soul free. And that's the blueprint for it in the book. Thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure as always.
Same. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.